Welcome to Movies That Matter, the podcast about recent films going above and beyond the call of box office returns to boldly explore a social issue affecting people's lives. I'm your host, Nicole Finari, and with me today is...
Adam Perry.
And this week we're going to overanalyze Miss Sloane. In the high-stakes world of political power brokers, Elizabeth Sloane is the most sought-after and formidable lobbyist in D.C. But when taking on the most powerful opponent of her career, she finds winning may come at too high a price. All right, let's kick it off. So, podcast fans, Adam and I neither of us are DC natives, but we do live here in Washington, D.C., where the movie is set. So we'll get into some good DC insider info. But first and foremost, what did you think?
I really enjoyed the movie a lot. I thought it was basically an excuse to have a Jessica Chastain character-driven movie. This is like a showcase for her. The plot was corny, but it was fun. I liked the dialogue. It's been getting a lot of criticism for that on like Rotten Tomatoes and stuff. The main complaint is the dialogue is like a watered-down Aaron Sorkin type thing. I don't really care. I thought it was funny. She had all the best lines. And the plot kept me going, even though the ending's completely unrealistic. The music was great.
The music was good.
The side characters were good. I thought they did... I mean, you could tell it's not DC, but they did a decent enough job disguising it. There were like a couple scenes where I knew what was going on, but...
First of all, I'm like, it's snowing in the background all the time, which, like, unless it's 2009, it doesn't snow that much in DC, so first of all, I was like, this has got to be Canada, right? Like, why is it snowing so much?
They had too many, like, you couldn't tell they were skyscrapers, I just agree. Because when you're, like, in the meeting rooms where they have, they're assembling their teams or whatever, you can see that all the buildings around them are just super big and tall. You can just tell that it's not Washington.
I totally caught that as well. But I have to say, like, there was no, my egregious metro thing, which makes me crazy.
Well, Miss Sloane doesn't ride the metro.
Yeah, so. She doesn't, thank goodness. And a lot of the exterior shots were absolutely recognizable places. When they say it's Capitol Hill, it was Capitol Hill. So no complaints, like, needs must. And only I would feel like I was looking for them to screw up, and they pretty much didn't. So I give them a pass on that.
They had the circulator.
They did. They had a bunch of circulators, awesome. And I was like, good job. Yeah, totally.
Anytime she was driving to her hearings, you could tell it was looked like it was along the Potomac. I'm not sure if for sure they filmed that there, but it looked convincing enough. The Watergate exterior was great. I thought it was cool that that's where she lives. And yeah, they did a really good job. Yeah,
the technical quibble I have, I gotta say, I mean, I didn't find like most of the technical aspects of the movie particularly noteworthy. I did like the music. Editing was fine, but the plot dragged in places. So I could have used just a tighter script in that sense, because you're like, there's going to be a twist, and there's always a twist, but you're like, all right, get to it. Like, I know there's going to be a twist. I figured this out so far, so.
Yeah, it was kind of long. I agree. But I did not, I didn't mind so much that it was long. It's one of the first movies I've seen in a long time where I didn't want to use the restroom or anything, because I was just so interested and liked it so much.
I definitely wanted to see what her end game was.
Yeah, it was good.
But so, the costuming for her and like the look of Elizabeth Sloane, very silly Miss Sloane, Elizabeth Sloane, or Liz Sloane, depending on how close she was to the person talking, and her like fabulous lobbyist outfits, and I was
haircut was great.
That is so un-DC. This is not a very well-dressed town. No. Lobbyists wear, like, boring conservative suits to fit in with the Congress people. I was like, I wish anybody in this city looked that good. But I thought they made good use with the very intense lipstick with her incredibly pale skin.
And, the hair, the coloring of it, and the contrast to the, like, I guess she was pretty much always in, like, dark, jagged, like, pointy suits. That I thought looked really cool for the character.
I did think, though, so I'm curious to hear how you felt about the sort of moral play of the movie. Because, okay, I'm admittedly an ends justify the means kind of person. Plus, I'm like, Miss Hyper-Rational Economist brain. And everybody was like, she's so terrible. She's the worst person in the world. Like, she'll sell anybody out. And I'm like, it's a job.
Yeah,
it's a professional environment. She's not supposed to be friends with these people.
Yeah, and at no point does she ever pretend to be anything she's not. I don't know if we're going to start talking about, like, specific parts of the movie when she, like, sells her coworker out, basically, on the live TV show. Like, she says, I never was not going to do that, She's totally upfront about who she is and what she wants. And the whole movie is very consistent in that tone from start to finish that, you sometimes, I guess, don't really like her as much, but I
had no problem with her.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't think she did anything wrong.
Me neither. And I was like, everybody was so upset all the time. And I'm like, I don't get what she did that was so bad. Like, she doesn't give her underlings the full story when she has a subplot going. And I'm like... It makes complete sense. Like, why would they need to know that? Yeah. And why are they super upset about it? Like, that part... I just got on my nerves because I was like, what? It's special. I find people get very emotional about their jobs. Yeah. And you're like, this is a professional. Like, this is an economic relationship. We're not friends.
Yeah, but that's a reality I've found, too, in, like, pretty much any job I've ever had. Granted, I've worked nowhere near that kind of career, but people do, like, form these bonds with each other and forget that it's just, business, work, whatever. The relationship is there, and that's like I thought it made sense in the movie. I wasn't so much annoyed about it because I completely saw people acting like that in the real world, getting offended over the slightest, thing.
Yeah, I agree. People get very like emotional about stuff, and they feel like you owe them the loyalty that you're like, I got a better offer for more money. Like, why would I owe you? Like, this is a job. Like, I don't understand it.
And to her, it's all about winning, which I thought was a really great part of the movie. It starts with her quitting this prestigious job to take on an issue that she feels passionately about, but also it's the size of the fight. And I think the part that best demonstrated that is the head of the gun organization, I guess I'll just call it, comes in with this stupid idea about how they need to like switch the narrative so that women are protecting themselves with guns, and she just starts laughing at him. I thought that was the most telling part of her character, because it's this like guy thinks he came up with this great idea and it like sucks, and he can just do anything because he's the gun lobby and they have tons of money. And that, I think, is when you really see that for her it is all about the challenge involved, and that's why she goes to this other firm. Yeah, it's like there's no doubt ever in the movie about who she is. I feel like there's no,
there's no doubt, but there's also no explanation, which I also really like. They don't ever try to give her some sort of tragic backstory.
Yeah, there's no gun
or whatever.
Backstory.
Like, you either are on board or you're not. And I thought, wow, one of the things that I completely hate about Steven Spielberg is like, he'll give you sad music and some like sappy anecdote, and now you have to be on that character's side because you heard something emotional about them, and then the music played on your emotions as well, and you're like, oh, now I like them. And like that sort of movie gimmick just gets...
Yeah, it's annoying.
It's overplayed and it drives me crazy, and this one was like, you're either on board or you're not. Like, they never try to explain her.
She said herself that it was a terrible, like, just because you had something happen to you personally is one of the worst reasons to change your stance on something.
Yeah.
It should just be about how you feel about the issue, and that was consistent throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, I agree, and I love that about her. I think for me that, like, I like that you brought up the most telling moment. I think for me the most telling moment, first of all, I loved... And this is, I will admit, a total double standard. I totally love the prostitution.
Dude, I love that guy.
Everything about that
great.
I thought was like very empowering and go woman, and I fully admit would not feel the same way in a gender reversal situation.
I agree with you, but that's like hardly ever portrayed, and they did try to use it to come at her at the end, and it just didn't work. And yeah, it was a great, that guy I felt like could have had another movie just about him falling for this character, and then at the end he doesn't rat her out, and I think that's because it's like he was kind of in love.
I don't know.
Like you didn't really need any backstory on that either.
No, you didn't. And I love the part where he opens up to her about a couple things, and so then she opens up to him about some of her sort of angst. And I think your only clue about her character is she says to him, I've been lying my entire life. Like, it just comes naturally.
Yeah, that's why I had to do it my whole life. That's why I'm good at it.
Right, and that makes you think, oh, maybe like alcoholic parents or something, you know. But and then she just kind of gives her little sob story and pauses, and she's like, okay, I think that's an even exchange of them. So it's literally like such a calculated thing of like, you told me something, I'm going to pay you back that amount. You know, like, she has her own sort of code of honor that's clear, but it's still just this very calculated transactional way of dealing with people.
There was also the quip about, to go back to the like complete lack of backstory on the character, about how her first name is Madeline and only her mother called her that. And you can kind of read into that. But that's what's cool about the movie in general, is that anything you infer about that character is not spoon-fed to you at all by the movie, by the script, or really anything. It's kind of like you get to fill it in your mind. It's one of those rare movies that doesn't just start and stop with like the screen time. You know, you can kind of make these leaps, and I like that aspect of it a lot.
Me too. And like, again, always better like show don't tell. Like, any sort of like long exposition about her tortured childhood would have been horrible in this movie. Yeah. And you're like, you get that she must have had one based on what she's showing you now. So I thought that part was really good, and I thought I'm with you on like the rest of the actors really brought that level of depth to their characters when we know nothing about any of the rest of them other than Gugu and Batha Ra.
She was really good in that movie too, I thought. She's
a favorite of mine. I love to see her cropping up everywhere.
I haven't seen her in anything else. I know she's been in other stuff. I think this is the first thing I saw her in.
I've seen her in a few things, partly because I sought her out. Like, she did a really good job in this movie that was kind of a cheesy rom-com called Beyond the Lights.
Yeah, the one, she's like a singer that tries to kill herself or something.
Yeah, and she like...
Not a spoiler.
Yeah, she nailed that performance. Like, it's not that great in a movie other than the fact that, like, she really delivers in a lot of ways. Yeah. And I loved their scenes together. I loved, even with the sellout, like, you get the sense that she immediately identifies women that she thinks that she can mentor and she can grow, like that, and that mentor relationship comes back, you know, in the end. We'll spoil later, as we tend to do good discussion and then give spoiler alerts towards the end of the podcast. And so, you know, again, for all her like supposed, that's the one thing that was just dissonant to me. It was like, everybody tells you what a horrible person she is, and I'm like, I haven't really seen her do anything that bad.
That was one of the my friend who went to the movie with me said that was good, is that, you know, you have this industry that's kind of like calling her out the whole movie, and I think that serves if you know, I don't want to say like watch it correctly or like anything, but you should get from that she's like the lone figure of I don't know what word I'm looking for here, where she is, you know, 100% honest in one of the more dishonest, I guess, professions ever. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but I mean, that character does nothing to be bad, in my opinion. Like, she's ruthless. That's all it is, you know?
Yes, she's ruthless. I don't agree with, they sort of allude to the dirty tricks lobbying practices of finding a way to pay for a congressperson's trip to kill legislation and that kind of stuff. So, the dirty ethics of that stuff to me is certainly problematic. The interpersonal coworker shit, I was like, and then her last, you want to get to her other big character flaw, which you said was the first thing you wrote down about this movie.
I was revisiting my notes, and the first phrase is popping pills. And that is one thing I'm not a fan of in any movie ever, is a framing device. I just think they're the worst. But this one worked for me, because you kind of get a timeline for the whole story with it, I guess. Then they do a really good job spelling that out, like when stuff is taking place, and you have a good sense of the story that way. But yeah, you first see her, she's going to her congressional hearing, and she's getting rid of pills, and then the next scene is like 4 months earlier, and she's popping pills, and I don't know, I thought it was kind of cool that they were just uppers, so that's all it was, just like stay up and work the whole time, but normally that kind of storyline I can take or leave. I just don't really.
Yeah, I
don't know how much I bought it.
Yeah, it didn't seem like, as an element to her character, I guess it was sort of like she'll do anything to get the job done, but I'm like, I don't know why
her life is work, and that's all. I don't know.
I don't know why I needed to know that, and I'm glad they didn't make her have some like big addiction breakdown or whatever.
Yeah, that would have been terrible.
That would have been annoying as shit. So
I feel like she could have just like pounded a lot of coffee, and that would have been kind of the same. Like, it never, I guess she has her like, I'm not a drug addict moment. I kind of like that, because looking back, when you, I guess, realize like what's going on the whole time at that hearing, like, it's totally staged. But I thought that was really funny when she's counseled by the lawyer to say nothing the whole time, and you're like, okay, she seems like a stone cold fox, she's not going to say anything. And then like a little bit from John Lithgow, the guy investigating her, and she just like breaks down automatically. It's like, I guess that's why they put the storyline in there, so they'd have something on her. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think it was maybe just a lot of like red herrings. They're trying to they are trying to like misdirect you a lot in this movie of like is she gonna get caught for using a prostitute? Is she gonna get caught over the Indonesian thing? Is she pill popper? Like, who's really the mole, and who's, a
lot of spinning plates in
this movie. There are a lot of, which, some came off and some didn't. But
I didn't mind it. I never felt like I was being manipulated by any of them. That's what I liked, is that it's not, I guess the drug thing was the closest it came, but it never seemed like this was a movie made by people sitting around thinking about how clever they were, that they were going to fool me at the theater. Like, it just seemed like it's like a lot of stuff just kind of unfolding.
Well, none of it seems, it all is a realistic red herring. Like, none of it seems like, they just
super forced or anything.
Although again, I did find that got a little bit long on the exposition, or like the waiting for the twist. You're like, look, I know there's going to be a twist. Like, you've spoiled me on this like 5 times already in this movie. Like, cut to the chase. Like, I'm not believing any of this her. She's like, no, I'm just doing this. I'm like, I don't believe her. Like, I already know she's lying. You've told me that this whole movie, so.
What did you think of, this is a big thing for me, the other, besides the 2 main, I guess, characters in the movie we've already kind of touched on, just the other, it did have a pretty big cast, and I kind of like that. I kind of was just waiting for Miss Sloane to come back on the screen a lot of the time, but I feel like they served a purpose. What did you think of the other people in the movie and how they kind of like tried to, I guess, make you care about like Mark Strong? or like whoever in the movie.
Did
he do anything for you, or?
Mark Strong was the CEO of her lobby firm. That was the weakest person to me. His motivations were, I think he was playing the hell out of that character, but the character didn't make a lot of sense. Yeah. So, where I think everybody else did a lot with very little. I mean, Sam Watterson, brilliant choice. Yeah. Like, because, we all have the Law and Order in our head. Like,
never seen an episode of that show.
Okay.
So, but I know he's on it.
I feel like that can't be possible.
Is he on SVU?
No, he was on the first one.
I've only seen SVU.
Okay. No, it's funny to me because I'm like, how did you avoid it?
1,000 episodes of it?
Yeah, exactly. And he was on almost all of them,
I didn't try. I guess that's how I avoided it. It just kind of happened.
But I thought her sort of arch nemesis, and I don't remember.
Oh, Michael Stolbarg, I think is how you pronounce it. You. He's the man. I love that guy. He could be in anything. Literally, I watched him in Men in Black 3 and liked him, so he could be in anything, and it'd be worth watching. Yeah, I mean, again, like, really talented cast, and where, the writing might have been weak, the performances absolutely filled in the blanks. Completely of, like, made those real people. Yeah. And you can see his fire to win and to finally beat her was really good. So I really liked everybody. The CEO, the do-goodery aspects of it, I couldn't really get behind. Yeah, he wasn't you don't need him as like an audience surrogate. Because like we clearly are supposed to like Miss Sloane the whole movie. I feel like it's about her, but he's just like this, like, I don't approve of anything even remotely below board or whatever. It kind of got tiring.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think he really was supposed to be like the moral compass, but then again, I didn't think anything she did was particularly wrong, so then it didn't sort of come off.
He's just like annoying. Like the part I thought that...
Like the surveillance thing, I was like... When she's like, I never did any illegal surveillance, I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of surveillance that's not actually illegal. Yeah. So, I was just like...
What kind of turned me against that character was when she revealed she had been getting money from I guess, like, female CEOs or whatever, and he's just doesn't even remotely appreciate it.
Yeah, he's like super angry at her.
It's just like... Dude, you dick.
Yeah, totally. And he's like, you should have told... I'm like, I guess she should... I don't know. It was like, you hired her. You knew
exactly.
What you were gonna get.
You knew what you were getting into. You got what you paid for.
Like, and she's just told you this, like, super amazing thing, and then you're like, I won't even have a drink with you. Like,
that was what made me the maddest at it. Was
like,
how,
sit down and have a drink.
Yeah, definitely true. Like, and you're going to turn down scotch... that someone who you should be giving a case of it to.
Yeah.
I just thought that was kind of like where I was like, I'm done with you. What's his name? Rudolfo Schmidt, I think is the character's name. It's like kind of a weird name, I feel like.
I don't know. I'm like, look, you did great on cast diversity. I don't know what you're trying to like make somebody have a cure for. Just stop. That was weird.
I found that to be annoying, but I thought his best scene was his introduction, where she thinks he's a reporter.
And then, spoiler alert. So we threw enough podcast listeners. You're getting your first spoiler. I absolutely love when they flipped the note over and he offered her $0 to take the position. I didn't see that twist coming.
Neither.
I thought that was great, and it kind of gives you, but again, it gives you the sense of like he actually knows how to play her. Like that is the move that's the move she would respect and take the job for.
Yeah.
So moving into the like power brokering lobby position, since we are DC folks, I will admit to having one good friend who's a lobbyist. I have been a bureaucrat, right? I've worked in the federal government, but I have never been associated with Congress or the legislature or any of that stuff.
Me neither. I work near the Capitol building. Does that count?
It counts. Do you know ex-Hill staffer? Wow, you have to know at least some. Okay, so no Hill people in your past.
No, I mean,
or present.
The closest I get to them is when the interns leave their little hill positions, they come to my store and buy thank you notes for the people they worked with.
Got it. So, yeah. So, for the uninitiated, there really are, in that sense, like 2 DCs. And again, even though I was absolutely a part of the federal government, but like as a Fed, as a executive branch grunt, or even a contractor, it's like you're in that world and you're in the world of like regular people who have regular jobs, or you're in the world of the Hill. Like there's overlap. Like I said, I have friends who are sort of ex-Hill people, but like we kind of keep ourselves separate. And Adam and I were discussing earlier about how, like, we shouldn't judge anybody's moral character on their preferences or their opinions, but, like, let me tell you that Hill people are, like, insufferable blowhards and really staying out of that.
They think they're doing so much when really they're doing so little. Like,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
They're real arrogant. Like, I stay out of that world for a reason.
Yeah.
So, in terms of, like, looking at the power-broking world and the lobbying, the movie caught a lot of... like, the timing is really unfortunate.
Yes.
In the sense of, like, oh, now we're all talking about sham campaigns and Trump and lies. But
I remember reading about it, like, right before it came out. This may have even been before the election when Jessica Chastain was talking about, like, promoting the movie during, I guess, like, the political season. And she's like, it's been a complete nightmare. It's just... the timing is unfortunate. Nobody feels the same way about anything, and it's like kind of hard to be like, go see this movie where a insanely contested issue is the subject and everyone involved in making a law is kind of a scumbag. It's just, the timing is unfortunate.
It is, especially because I think that this is still a factor. Like, lobbying is still a thing. There's so much control that lobbyists have over our government for good or for ill, right? Like, it's easy to criticize somebody else's lobbyists if you don't agree with the issue. But at the same time, like, some of this reason, like, the only reason we have environmental regulation a lot of times is because a whole bunch of environmental groups sue the EPA to do their job. So I think it's easy to criticize the other side, but I mean, I do think, like, keeping your eye totally focused on the presidency, it's like, hey, Congress is the one who makes the laws. Like, the president has power, but only so much.
Well, you see that with, like, the senator board, I guess, that they set up, where it's the whole movie. I guess they have these little scenes they cut to where they're counting the votes that they need to get, and the president is never mentioned at all in the whole movie. It's basically just buying influence. That's the whole point, is which side can throw more money or favors, or it kind of makes it look super scummy in the movie, like who can just win that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is super scummy a lot of the time. I mean, one of the things that I think about, as part of this world, and one of the things that they sort of allude to, but that struck me, I guess, is the most realistic part, is like, I mean, when you're a lobbyist, you don't really care about the issues sometimes. Like, you're just, I mean, you may have when you started, but you spend so much time kissing other people's ass. Yeah. Like, I don't know how, like, that just, I feel like it just becomes your default mode. And it is incredibly long hours. It is attending all sorts of functions and fundraising and, telling everyone how great they are. Yeah. And you're like, at some point, you just like, I feel like I don't know, you do lose a sense of reality there. And you forget that, like, this affects actual people's lives. And
oh, totally. And I thought the cool aspect of the movie was this David and Goliath sort of thing, where it's kind of like you get the scenes of, like, how scummy the, I guess, industry is, or whatever, like, how contemptible they are of, like, everyday people's intelligence when they're laying out, like, the plans at the beginning. And the aspect of it that appeals to her again is just taking on such an impossible fight. And I think that, you know, kind of reflects real life where, like, she never would have won, is the gun lobby.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, that's kind of depressing to me. Like,
it was, but again, it, like, I liked, that was a smart issue for the movie to pick, and it sort of talked about, you know, plenty of people have bitched about this presidential election being issue-free. And I think all presidential elections are. Like, I personally think the election for president is no different than, like, a high school election. It's literally a popularity contest. This one was actually an anti-popularity contest in terms of, like, everybody...
who's worse.
Yeah, like, it was like everyone actually voted for the least worst person. But I do think, and that is why the NRA is so strong, like, that local elections often come down to issues, and they come down to rallying up the base and getting people to the polls, especially in off-year elections. And so...
Well, the NRA just has to convince people to say no to something, too. It's way easier to do that than to convince
But it's hard to get people out of their houses. Like, do you know what I mean?
Not when they all just need to have that, pardon the pun, that one trigger to get them to be like, oh, take guns away. They're gonna just do whatever they want. I mean, no, I'm not trying to make it political or anything, but it's like that is
it's a political movie. This is where you get political.
That's literally all they have to do. Like, it's, you know, they know that, I know that, we all know that. It's fine. You know, I mean, it isn't, but I don't care that they're doing it. But, you know, it's just so easy to mobilize a negative force like that too. You know,
I think so. I mean, but I do think. I mean, you know, Citizens United and all the money in politics and all this stuff, and it's like, you know,
the biggest waste of money ever.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, like, I just hear about, like, all the money people throw at stuff like that. It's just like, why?
Well, it doesn't work. Like, that's the interesting thing. So
where does it go? Like,
I mean, it goes to stupid shit like this. Like, it goes to buy her really fancy outfits to attend functions. Do you know what I mean? And there's actually credible evidence. There's a few economic studies where they look at things like local elections, and they're like, it really doesn't work. Like, money actually doesn't sway elections. And so I think, like, when people want to reduce lobbying to this movie where, like, she's just so super smart and she can mobilize a bunch of people and then she can be corrupt and, like, sway an issue, and you're like, it is so much more complicated than that. Like, it's just not that black and white to me, because people are, you know, we just had a fact-free election.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Well, one of the bigger fallacies of filmmaking in general, like most movies that are widely released, is this, that one person can make that difference. I mean, I hate to sound really, like, cynical, but it's kind of true. Like, you're like, you have this one shift to your side, and all of a sudden this, you know, podunk lobbying firm just can
Boutique.
raise the boutique, that's what they call it, that they can just, like, raise Washington to the ground to their will. You know, it's just crazy to me. And, you know, I want that in the movies. That's where I go for unrealistic stuff. But It's just like, you know, we were leaving the theater, I was like, yeah, it's like, I'm kind of depressed now because I kind of wish that would happen in real life.
Yeah,
like,
no,
it's just not.
No, it's true. It's a good point, and that's where, like, it's just shit's really depressing. But you know, David Simon is the complete antidote to that, because, like, all his stuff is like, it, you know, like, the institution will always win. The institution has more people. It has status quo bias. Like, it has been doing this longer than any individual have. Like, one individual trying to shift the system.
David Simon's great. I know he's not related to Miss Sloane in any way, but
no, but I do think you're completely right. Like, as Americans, like, we tell ourselves so many stories about the individual who can, like, change everything, and they make her out to be evil, but in service of this, like, noble goal, right? I mean, would anybody see this movie if she had actually done? If she hadn't quit the firm and chosen the other side, if she were, like, her whole thing was, like, shutting down, like, gun bans? No.
Yeah, the one thing I like that they did, though, is that's, like, the beginning of the movie. Is, like, her quitting. You don't get, like, you know how it's, like, we think it's long, there still wasn't that like 30 minutes before she decides it's like, I'm gonna leave my comfortable high-powered job and go off into the great unknown just because of the fight. Like here it is, and that made it more believable, honestly, to me. Like,
Honestly,
there's like zero preamble to that.
Well, what made it believable to me was, like, I was annoyed that she even went back into the room or into Sam Waterston's office to talk to him about it. Because the moment the guy says to her, I know your reputation and that's why you're here, you're like, quit. Start your own firm. Like, you're ready. Like, once somebody knows that you're being recruited for your name and not the company's name, like, you've got your
I don't think that
out.
she would ever start her own firm, though. I think she likes being like the hired gun too much.
Yeah, I think that's true. But
you start your own firm. She uses other people's names to kind of shield herself. I feel like almost in the movie,
Yeah,
it's like,
she does.
People know her name, but they know who she works for. It's not like if she ran a lobbying firm, then it would all be out there. It'd be like Liz Sloane does this, Liz Sloane does that. If she has an employer, kind of there's some, I guess, distance there.
Yeah, and also true, right? Like, my thing, again, economists is always like, follow the money, like, this legislation is getting set up in this way. Why? Who paid to have it? Who makes the nutrition rules? Who decides that, like, I can't have a real Coke with sugar in this country? And
what constitutes this as a cake?
Yeah.
That was like a little throwaway thing in that movie I thought was so good.
It was so good because, if I listened to the Planet Money podcast, which is like an econ podcast, and they actually have done a few episodes on like international trade and what these trans-Pacific partnerships, like what all that shit is. And that's actually what's in these things. Like, forget Trump and everybody losing their jobs. Like, honestly, it's like pages and pages and pages of like what the tariff is, if it's a raincoat, and then what constitutes a freaking raincoat. Does it just have to be waterproof? Does it have to be a jacket? Like, how long does it have to be? Like, it has to have sleeves.
I thought we had a dictionary for that to just like...
I'm saying that the there's like hundreds of pages that people write down that someone sits in a room to define a freaking raincoat so you know how to tax it.
Just hear the money being wasted on that.
Right? I know, and then it's literally somebody else's job to figure out how to make something that's a raincoat but not quite a raincoat according to the definition so they can get around that tariff. Like, it's that part I thought was really good.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, that's really realistic.
Yeah,
it is. It's totally banal, but it is so much of what happens in DC. Like, and that, again, you pick like the super flashy things, and I'm like, Congress has basically one essential job: raise the money, spend the money. Like, that is what they do.
Just keep it all moving,
right? Like, they set taxes, they spend taxes. Like, that's their job. And and I'm just as guilty as anybody else of like the flashy social issues in gay marriage, or not to say those things aren't important, but you're like, honestly, like, you should be voting basically on how they raise the money and how they spend the money, because the
other stuff's kind of like distracting. Almost.
Right, gun control is almost never going to come up. Like, really, you're going to pick that issue over like taxes?
Yeah. Like, the fact of the matter is people can get guns and they're going to kill people,
Yeah, I like the line where they were like, now they just made it a little bit harder to buy something.
Now they just have to go, like, the inconvenience of that guy. I liked a lot. The lawyer, Posner, the firm's lawyer. He was great.
He was a total that guy too.
I've never seen that dude in anything. Either.
I feel like I've seen him in lots of things, but I have no idea what that dude's name is. And he's just like, he's a that guy.
He's a that guy to the extent that I walked out of the movie, loved his performance, loved the character, swore I was going to go home, check him out, see what else he did, and then
immediately forgot about it. Like, yeah.
Yep, just didn't do it.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I do feel bad about the timing because I think it's a fun movie. I tend to
extremely entertaining.
I tend to like these types of things. I love a good heist movie too. Same principle.
Yeah,
like twists and turns,
if
and
you
like
look
keep
at
me
it
guessing.
like the noir lens, you could definitely like
Hey, if they get me, I like the satisfaction of having figured out some things, and then the satisfaction of like, oh, they got me. I didn't see that coming. Like so we'll get to that spoiler. Like, did you see the Jane character doing the double cross? I didn't see it coming.
I didn't think about it, but I was not in the least bit surprised, I guess, would be a better... I don't want to pretend I was like knew that the whole time, but I was just like, oh, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, no, I thought that was well set up, and I didn't see it coming. But I should have. I mean, I knew she, again, like she says, like you wait for them to play their trump card and then you play yours.
Yeah, that's the beginning of the movie. Is
right.
That whole speech.
So the whole thing with her in the hearing, and then they have their card, and you're like, so you're just waiting for her to play her trump card. Which
is why I thought the part where they bring in Robert Ford, which I love, was the prostitute's legal name, by the way.
Yes.
That's the one time where you can tell she's sitting there like, no, just let it play out, but doesn't have a clue. Like,
yeah, I think
and it just happened to go her way. The movie does a very good job of letting you know, like, you can imagine a reality where that dude is like, she paid me for sex all the time, and then she's just done. It doesn't matter, like, what else she has on them.
Yeah, the only problem I had with that was, like, she's been so counseled to plead the fifth. I'm like, he's a freaking prostitute. I feel like he would have pled the fifth, but whatever.
But he's in love with Miss Sloane. You missed that whole part.
I did. Subtext. The subtext.
Who wouldn't be?
I do like the, like, twisty, turny... And again, some of it just got a little bit lengthy because you know the twist is coming. But, yeah. I thought it was fun. I recommend it. So...
Very satisfying ending. With that
twist. Yeah, she's in jail. Like, what a weird...
She leaves jail. That's the last shot of the movie is her just leaving jail. And you kind of like... Yeah, and she's just like, what is this character going to go on to do now? Her career is done.
Oh, opposite. Do you think so? I felt like
legally,
the opposite.
But I feel like she could probably like trade on her name. Definitely.
So that part. Okay, so that's a good. It's a good thing that we should talk about in the whole trading on your name. So one of the things where people are like, oh, it's career suicide. She's going to be done. I'm like, if she wins passage of the bill, she's never going to be done.
Yeah.
Like that also is unfortunately how the world works. How many bankers lost their job after destroying our economy?
Goose egg.
Yeah. How many whistleblowers never worked again? All of them. Like, I'm like, no, I wish that's the way the world worked. I wish that she would be punished for it. But she won't. She will absolutely land on her feet. Like, that's unrealistic. She knows she's not sacrificing her career for this. Like, in no way, shape, or form. Like Jack Abramoff has bounced back. Like, give me a break. I
forgot about that guy.
Yeah, like, so I was sort of like, I'm not sure. I couldn't figure out if we were meant to believe that or meant to, like, know that she sees the long game of, like, that's crap. I'll be back.
Yeah, well, that's why it's such a great last shot, because it's so open-ended. You can infer what you want. It's like...
Fair enough.
Sloane going back into the world.
Oh, absolutely.
What's going to happen next? Who knows? I'm hoping for Miss Sloane, too.
Kicking ass and taking names.
Highly doubt it's going to be a thing, but
yeah.
I don't care.
Okay.
The one wrinkle we didn't talk about that I really liked was the shooting in the movie. I thought that was cool.
I was expecting a setup, and I was glad that it didn't go down that way.
Yeah, another part where they don't pander to, like, your notions of what's going on. Like, she doesn't have a tragic backstory. That wasn't set up. It's completely realistic the way it happened too, you know, in the extent of
DC's concealed carry law.
That was in Indiana though.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
it was in
she
Indiana.
Wasn't there. I said that in the theater, and I was informed by the person
fair enough, because she
wasn't there.
She has to fly out and see it. Yeah, no, I thought that was good because I kept waiting to see that was the setup, and then it wasn't. I agree with you. I was glad about that.
Those little touches made a very unrealistic movie a little more grounded to me. I thought. It's like life playing out. It's like you make your best laid plans, and they don't always go that way or often go that way.
Exactly.
Except at the end of the movie when they did. but
yeah,
it's
she's
a
got
movie,
it all covered.
so
I mean,
wanted
that's
it
like
to
she's
go that
all knowing
way.
and all seeing, right?
Yep.
Like she's planned for every contingency, which again is what makes these types of movies fun. Is to believe that the character is always one step ahead of the game.
Yeah. It was a great political thriller type movie to watch and be entertained.
Yeah, entertaining, definitely. So on that note, do you have any other entertaining recommendations?
For what?
For anything.
I just watched 4 Christmases, and I watched the Always Sunny in Philadelphia Christmas special because it's
Very
Christmas
nice.
this month. An actual good Christmas movie you could watch is Die Hard.
Yeah, I always like Scrooged. Just the part where Carol Kane hits Bill Murray over the head.
Any Christmas Carol movie is gonna be good. It's the story of our time.
Yeah.
Truly.
So my recommendations for the week on the political stuff is the Robert Redford film The Candidate. Very prescient for what happened. Really good movie. And we are also happen to be recording this podcast on my older sister's birthday. So I will give a plug for Lip Magazine, www.lipmag.com. She started it in Australia. It's a great website. It's all about women's issues and other social issues. It's geared towards young women. Keep that in mind. May not be everybody's cup of tea, but I will throw that into the podcast. So yeah, I think that about does it for us. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Movies That Matter. If you did, please take a second to leave a review on iTunes. It really, really, really helps. Please do it. And recommend it to your friends. If you want to talk to us, you can find me at the website, www.moviesthatmatterpodcast.com. Leave a comment on the show page if you want to talk back to anything we've said. I'm at Funarini on Twitter.
At Chubby John Lennon, but I never check it. Lennon is spelled like the dictator, not the singer.
Please remember always, movies matter.
And so do you.
We'll see you next time.